Hey, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. How is everybody doing on this Monday? I am excited to be bringing you another edition of the show every Monday and Wednesday night at 5 o'clock. That's where you're going to see me and everything that I'm going to do when it comes to breaking down the world of sports. So much to get into. Going to talk about who's going to be my guest on the show this week. It's a good one. It's a longtime guest of the Sports Beat back in the original days on WQEE back in 2022. It's Gabe Reynolds, who is the head volleyball coach and basketball coach of Ezell Harding Christian School, which is a private school in Franklin, Tennessee. He is going to be on Wednesday's show. I'm excited to be bringing Gabe Reynolds back to the show. And then next week, I cannot wait for this guest. I've been wanting to get her on my podcast for a long time now. It's WMAZ Sports Director Sammy Costas. We're going to talk everything Macon sports, as I'm invested in Macon sports because of my work with Middle Georgia Sports Live. And I was just at Pike County earlier today, and I have so much interest in covering Pike County, Taylor County, Upson Lee. So on this podcast, every Friday night, I'm going to be breaking down not just the Chattahoochee Valley, but the area in between from the Middle Georgia Sports Live and Georgia Alabama Sports Live, those schools that don't get covered that often. Taylor County, Central Talbotton, Pike County, Upson Lee, Lamar County, Griffin, Spalding. I want to talk about those schools as well. I want to try to give you the best coverage possible here on the show. We got a great show for you. Going to talk NFL preseason, trouble in Falcons camp. I know it's just one game, but there's a meme that everybody's talking about, which is talking about the big picture of how the Falcons season is going to be. And I have some thoughts because I really think we could be in for a possible 2007 scenario for the Atlanta Falcons where it's a disaster of a season, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing because every year we get our hopes up. But I'm going to talk about that meme that's got everybody talking. And then the AP poll for college football has just come out, and my thoughts on the week one matchups. I talked about week 0 last week on my show. I'm going to talk about week 1 because there are some incredible matchups that I am looking forward to as college football is just around the corner. And then back to the NFL. I'll talk about NFL preseason, starting quarterback jobs, the battles in just the first week of preseason, and the rookies have been incredible. And I'm going to talk about that along with the Atlanta Falcons and everything that's been going on. So in this first segment, I'm going to talk NFL, college football. In segment number 2, Phenix City in the Little League World Series. They know who they're playing. They're taking on Tacoma on Wednesday. And I'm also going to talk about high school football, everything that we have done on Georgia Alabama Sports Live for the past week. And then going to talk a little Braves, Clean Stones, WNBA. We had Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese yesterday. Early County's Michaela Timpson had 20 points. That was awesome. My guy, Mike Woods, was actually there in attendance. I cannot wait to talk about that as well. Don't forget, every Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, you can catch new episodes of the Sports Beat on WQVZ Mission Radio, 1700 AM. I know that last week I had Rod Peterson on the show. I was on his show. He's got a show every day on WQVZ. There's a lot going on, and that's why I just want to continue networking, trying to get sports personalities on this podcast. That's why the next couple of guests are going to be fantastic, and I cannot wait to have them on the podcast. Let's go ahead and let's dive right into college football because we have got an AP poll that just came out recently, and I have some thoughts. The coaches poll did come out. And that's great. The AP poll is a little bit similar. No surprise, Ohio State University is the number 1 team. They got the most first place votes. They got 40 first place votes, followed by Oregon. So we got 2 Big Ten teams that are going to be ranked 1 and 2 in the AP poll. And then Georgia comes in at number 3, but they don't have any first place votes. That is interesting because I think that Georgia is one of the favorites not only to win the SEC, but to possibly get further in the college football playoff, maybe the semifinals or the national championship. They just have that good of a team. Still some question marks maybe at receiver. They're not really polished at receiver like they used to be in the past. And then Notre Dame. Notre Dame, he's got 6 first place votes. They got a pretty easy schedule. I think their toughest game is going to be Miami and BYU. Those are their toughest games. But Notre Dame, just not being in a conference, they are pretty much guaranteed to make the college football playoff. If they don't slip up, I still think they get into the college football playoff even if they lose 2 games. I think that this is the year that Notre Dame, they're on a revenge tour from last year. They get into the college football playoff this year. In Texas, no first place votes, but they are ranked number 5. There's a lot of pressure on Steve Sarkisian to win with this group. Arch Manning, who's projected to be the number 1 overall pick in the 2027 NFL draft. There are some possible scenarios where Texas makes the college football playoff, and their expectations is that they get there like they did 3 years ago with Quinn Ewers when they got to the semifinal. But I do believe that Texas can get to the college football playoff with Arch Manning. And then the defending champions of college football, the Indiana Hoosiers, they actually have 8 first place votes. I guess some of the voters are like, hey, they're the defending champions. Why not be a team that can go back to back? Will I think they go back to back? I know I said in my previous show a couple weeks ago that I probably not because of the schedule they play. But Indiana is right there at number 6. And then at number 7, the runners up last year, they got a new quarterback, the Duke transfer, Darian Menza, the Miami Hurricanes, which I think the Miami Hurricanes are the favorites in the ACC to not only win the ACC, but to get to the college football playoff once again. The U is stacked with talent everywhere. Malachi Toney, Mark Fletcher, they've got skilled position players, and that defense is incredible. I think Mario Cristobal has done a fantastic job recruiting at the University of Miami. And then at number 8, we've got Texas A&M, a team that got to the college football playoff last year. Marcel Reed coming back as quarterback. A local guy I really want to pay attention to is Tristan Givens. He is the former Carver Tiger who's a defensive end. Does he going to have an impact? Hopefully he does, but Mike Elko is got Texas A&M rolling. And then Ole Miss, Pete Golding, first year as full-time coach. He was the interim coach for a couple of games last year, won a playoff game as the interim coach, 2 playoff games to get to the semifinal where they lost to Miami. But I believe that quarterback matters. Returning quarterback Trinidad Chambliss is going to be the reason why Ole Miss ends up winning a lot of football games. And pencil in that game week 3 when Ole Miss hosts LSU. Lane Kiffin comes back to Oxford. That is going to be an incredible atmosphere. I still think Ole Miss is a very talented team that could get back to the college football playoff. And then Oklahoma at number 10, John Mateer, a quarterback that's got a lot of experience. I know that there's talks that Brent Venables could be on the hot seat if this season derails and Oklahoma is not the team that everybody thinks they are. But I do think that they have a lot of talent, and John Mateer coming back as the quarterback. LSU, we all expect LSU to be in the mix, especially with Lane Kiffin. A lot of transfers, though. Sam Levitt coming over from Arizona State. They're at number 11. Number 12, Texas Tech. They got a lot of NIL money. They're the Big 12 champions, but they had a very disappointing college football playoff exit because they ended up losing to Oregon. And the way they did, getting shut out by Oregon, completely unacceptable. I think Texas Tech is here because they are the class of the Big 12. They are the favorites to win the Big 12. So they'll get into the college football playoff because they'll have a pretty easy schedule. Alabama ranked outside of the top 10 for the first time since 2008. This is unbelievable. They have not been ranked this low in the AP poll since Nick Saban's first year. Think about that. That is unbelievable. and Alabama is ranked 13th. USC ranked at 14. There are some winnable games on the schedule where USC could try to get into the college football playoff, and I do believe that they're going to be a borderline college football playoff contender because they do have a lot of talent. And USC, right there in California, there's so many 5-star and 4-star athletes right there in their own backyard. And Lincoln Riley, hard to believe that I'm saying this, is on the hot seat if USC doesn't at least get 9 or 10 wins. Think about it. USC should be competing for Big 12 or Big 10 championships because of the talent they have there in Southern California. We got BYU ranked 14th. You know, BYU just continues winning. They know how to win. Michigan, we got a new coach when it comes, Kyle Whittingham. They're at number 16. Number 17, Washington. I do like Washington in the Big Ten. Jed Fish, pretty good coach. And I think Penn State has got a new coach, Matt Campbell. You got SMU over there with Rhett Lashley, another ACC favorite. They're at number 19. Tennessee is Josh Heupel on the hot seat if Tennessee derails this season and they don't exceed their expectations of at least getting 8-9 wins, and that's the expectations right now at Tennessee. Utah, give me 2. At number 21, one of the top teams in the Big 12. Iowa at 22. We got the Houston Cougars at 23. Louisville is there at 24. And then rounding out the AP top 25 is Missouri. Clemson on the outside of the top 25 AP poll for the first time in a long time. I believe 2011. It's been a long time, like the beginning years of Dabo Swinney. I find it hard to believe that they are not in the top 25. Other teams on the outside looking in, Florida, Boise State, UNLV, they got 4 first place votes, or 4 votes for the top 25, rather. I think UNLV is my dark horse to get to the college football playoff as a group of 5. I honestly think that they got Vegas, they got the NIL money over there with the Vegas and the gambling and with the sports betting. I know it sounds really sketchy, but trust me, bear with me with this. Allegiant Stadium, Nevada, with the sports betting, there are NIL opportunities here, legal NIL opportunities. Dan Mullen is a pretty good coach, and they got Jackson Arnold, the transfer from played at Oklahoma, played at Auburn for 1 year, but I think he'll have success at UNLV as the starting quarterback. And they're in the Mountain West. I think that UNLV can win in the Mountain West. There are some hiccups like Boise State, but I still think that UNLV could be one of those teams that could get to the college football playoff. I mean, I'm not delusional. I think that this could possibly happen. I've always thought UNLV could be a potential for a college powerhouse because of the Vegas factor. I mean, come on. So that's the AP top 25. I cannot believe college football is just around the corner. We do have week 0 next week. I'm actually going to have a segment on the show where I talk about some of the local teams here in the Chattahoochee Valley. Every week, I'm going to have a LaGrange report. I'm going to talk LaGrange football. I will have that segment, and then I'll talk Point University. You know, they both play each other on September the 5th at Callaway Stadium. I got to find a way to get there, whether it's media credentials or something, because I think that it would be very special to be a part of that, especially when you got 2 local teams here in this area facing off against each other. All right, let's take a look at week 1. Obviously, I talked about, I'm just going to do the teams that are in the top 25 for the AP poll. USC takes on San Jose State. This is actually week 0. And then on Thursday night, Missouri will take on Arkansas Pine Bluff. And then Utah will be facing Idaho on Thursday as well. Friday, on September the 4th, we have Oklahoma facing UTEP. Miami goes all the way to the farm in Stanford, in Palo Alto, to take on Stanford. I don't think that's a big slip-up game. I think Miami gets the job done. They went to Cal earlier last year, so they know how to get it done. USC hosts Fresno State. Remember that crazy game back when Reggie Bush just ran all over? This is a great rivalry. I love Fresno State. They're now in the Pac-12. in my opinion, and this is just my opinion because I'm from California, Fresno State has the most passionate college football fans in California. USC is maybe a close second. This is why I like this rivalry, and we're going to get that on Friday. Saturday's slate is completely loaded. Indiana taking on North Texas. That's the big noon kickoff on Fox. Alabama hosting East Carolina. Houston and Oregon State. Oregon State was patient. They're in the Pac-12 now. The real Pac-12. Last year was only just two teams in the Pac-12, so I don't even know why they called it the Pac-12. Ohio State taking on Ball State. Georgia is taking on Tennessee State. Boise State goes to Autzen to take on Oregon. This is the 3:30 game on CBS. Is Oregon on upset alert? Boise State always plays tough in these games. Remember, Oregon barely beat them last year. In Texas taking on Texas State. And is this a trap game? Probably not. They play Ohio State in week 2. But we got Penn State taking on Marshall. Marshall now has a new football coach. Tennessee taking on Furman. Iowa taking on Northern Illinois. It wasn't that long ago Northern Illinois upset Notre Dame. They could probably do it again. Texas A&M taking on Missouri State. Texas Tech taking on Abilene Christian. Here's the big game where Clemson may feel that they were disrespected because they didn't get in the AP Top 25. They go to Death Valley. Not their Death Valley. They're going to LSU's Death Valley to take on the LSU Tigers. Clemson Tigers taking on the LSU Tigers. Dabo Swinney going up against Lane Kiffin. 7:30 on ABC. That is one of those sit in front of the couch and watch that game or stream it on my phone. Of that week, Labor Day weekend, always my favorite time to watch college football because there's always intriguing matchups. Michigan taking on Western Michigan. BYU taking on Utah Tech. I had no idea there was a Utah Tech. I know there's a Utah State. Utah Tech? Is this like a new school? I'm kind of dumbfounded. All right, Sunday, September the 6th. This is the day before Labor Day. They're starting to put more and more games on Sunday because there's no NFL games on this day. So college football wants to try to utilize the Sunday before NFL games start to put more college football games on. I'm all for it. We got Washington State and Washington. We got the Apple Cup. That's going to be 4 o'clock on NBC and on Peacock. Probably just on NBC. It doesn't say Peacock. I'm assuming it's on Peacock. But Washington up in the Pacific Northwest. Washington State from Pullman going up to face their rival up in Seattle. They're no longer conference opponents, but it's still the Apple Cup. It's still a big deal. Notre Dame taking on Wisconsin. And look, Wisconsin, they've fallen off. They have fallen off a little bit. They want to try to get back to the way they were, being a formidable Big Ten opponent. But this is going to be a game where Notre Dame is going to show up and show out. It's going to be a good matchup. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we've got the Music City kickoff. We got Louisville and Ole Miss, both teams ranked in the AP Top 25. And then we've got the Monday game on Labor Day. We got SMU taking on Florida State. Ashton Daniels is now the starter at Florida State. Mike Norvell on the hot seat. Remember last year when they beat Alabama, they were pumping their chest. Tallahassee, Florida State, that whole fan base, they got to have a good year this year. This has got to be a bounce back year for Florida State. Otherwise, I think Mike Norvell is going to be out of a job. But that is week 1. That's only the AP Top 25 for week 1. But there is a team that I do want to talk about. I'm going to give my LaGrange Panther report because, quite frankly, nobody's covering LaGrange College. This team is fantastic. They play their games at Callaway Stadium. They got to the second round of the NCAA Division III playoffs last year when they lost to Berry College. But they do have some local talent that's playing at LaGrange College. And I just want to go through the schedule. They're taking on Point University, 7:30 kickoff at Callaway Stadium. And, yes, there is a way to watch this game on Panther Athletics or however you want to watch it. And then week 2, they go up to Berry College up in Rome, Georgia at Valhalla Stadium to take on the opponent that beat them in the second round of the NCAA playoffs. Look, this is a good team. They're in the USA South. They have got some pretty good home matchups, and I'm looking forward to. They even got a matchup with Huntington College in Montgomery, and I know some local players that play for Huntington College. I want to follow this team. I want to see what they are capable of because, quite frankly, I've been invested with LaGrange College, working up in LaGrange for 6 years and knowing the hotbed of high school football talent that's been in LaGrange. Why not more kids go to LaGrange College? They had a fantastic year last year. And I do think that it is attributed to their new football head coach. They had just a great job. Wes Dotson entering his second year. And I'm looking at the roster. We got some local players, from Westlake, East Coweta. There was a player from Crisp County. Looking to see if there's any local team players from the Chattahoochee Valley. I see somebody from Jones County. I see somebody that played at Sherwood Christian Academy, and I'm just going off of the roster. Jameer Mohammed, he played at Flint River. And we had Chauncey Brown, a freshman running back who played at Southwest. Who else is on there? It's a pretty a stacked roster of players that played at Thomas County Central. Desmond Jones, he's actually a transfer from Clark, Atlanta. So they got several players that were in the transfer portal, including at Division III powerhouse Mount Union. Brady Powell is another player that has had experience playing at NCAA Division III. But I'm excited that LaGrange is facing NAIA opponent Point University, which I'm hoping to have Brandon Roush on the SID for Point because I just want to find out what that vibe is like on campus at Point and then on campus at LaGrange College because these two teams are rivals and they are both fascinating. And I'm definitely going to be following LaGrange College throughout the football season. Especially, I definitely want to try to make it to that game at Callaway Stadium on September the 5th. Let's switch gears. Let's go to NFL preseason because my takeaway on preseason is that the Atlanta Falcons are in trouble. They lose to the Denver Broncos 27-7. Tua was awful. He fumbled the snap on his second possession on the first drive. He looked completely lost. In fact, when he was sitting on the bench, I don't know what was said, but Michael Penix Jr. points to him, and now it's a meme. And it's a laughing stock right now. The Falcons do not have a quarterback. Michael Penix Jr., we don't know how healthy he is. He might not be ready for week 1. Tua was brought in to be the bridge quarterback, a serviceable quarterback until Michael Penix Jr. gets healthy. And quite frankly, I don't think they have any quarterback. Cooper Rush throws 2 picks. Jack Strand, we were all optimistic. We got this rookie coming in. He was taking snaps with the first team, and there was so much excitement, and that excitement turned to gloom and doom after one preseason game. And I get it. It's only one preseason game, but there was nothing positive that you could take away from this preseason game against the Denver Broncos. There was nothing. I'm looking at the stats, and the player with the best quarterback rating was Tua. He had a 70 quarterback rating. He went 3 for 5 with 22 yards. Yeah, it's not much, but that fumble on the second drive was enough to say, oh, he may not be the guy. I don't know if Tua is the guy. And one takeaway, Chris Blair was maybe the bright side with 37 yards with only 2 catches. There's nothing here that I think that could tell you that the Atlanta Falcons are going to win this division and make the playoffs. Maybe, just maybe, they should consider tanking this year and try to get a top quarterback in the 2027 NFL draft. Yes, that's a hot take. Yes, Falcons fans might get mad at me, but I don't have any optimistic terms for this year. I'm not optimistic at all, even though all their skilled players are in the prime of their career. But your number one overall pick last year, Jalen Walker's out for the season. James Pierce is going to be suspended for the first 8 games. How much of an impact is he going to have when he gets back? There's not a whole lot of optimism. The Falcons will be on the road taking on the Indianapolis Colts for week 2 preseason next Saturday. Maybe I'll have a better report next week. I hope so. But my takeaway on the preseason, the rookies look fantastic, especially the quarterbacks. Fernando Mendoza, Carson Beck, Ty Simpson. You don't think the Rams found their future quarterback when Matthew Stafford retires? I believe they do. You put Ty Simpson in Sean McVay's offense, he's looked pretty good so far. I think that I was just blown away by that. The Browns actually have 2 pretty good quarterbacks. Just Deshaun Watson played pretty good. He had 11 for 15, 126 yards. Shadur Sanders, even though he threw an interception, he didn't look terrible. So maybe the Browns actually think they have 2 quarterbacks. I love the battle between Deshaun Watson and Shadur Sanders. And I also think that the Eagles, Jalen Hurts is going to be better without A.J. Brown. He's going to be more efficient. I do think that the Cowboys got a lot better getting Von Miller. And I think that that puts them as a possible winner of the NFC East. That division now is going to be battling. If Jaden Daniels comes back to form, and you got the Giants that's going to be improving with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo, Malik Neighbors comes back from injury. The Eagles are going to be better because they got rid of A.J. Brown, who was a headache in the locker room. They did lose some pieces on defense, but the Cowboys just completely upgraded getting Von Miller. That's going to be an exciting division to watch. And then you got the Seahawks, the defending Super Bowl champions that decided to roll the dice. Don't know what's going to happen with Terrion Arnold and what suspension he's going to get from the league. But the Seahawks decided, yeah, we'll take a chance on him because we could use another big-time corner. The Lions are obviously a character team that got rid of a guy that's facing 8 felony charges. Are you kidding me? But the Seahawks do what the Seahawks do. They get players that, could be facing big-time suspension. He could get suspended for a whole year. We're talking about 8 felony charges. So that's my takeaway on that. I know. First 30 minutes of the show, no breaks, just like Russell Westbrook's NBA career. All gas, no breaks. That's what I've done for the first segment. So let's take a break. When we come back, going to talk Phenix City Little League. They're in the Little League World Series. I didn't know if you knew that. All right, you don't want to go anywhere. It's the Sports Beat with Rich Holdridge. Back after this. We are back here on the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Make sure you're following us on the socials. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast. And I'm on Instagram and TikTok. All right, I do want to talk Phenix City Little League. They won the Southeast Division. They are going to Williamsport. I talked about this on the show last week. This is a big deal, especially as I cover local sports here in the Chattahoochee Valley. And the fact that I was able to cover this team for Georgia Alabama Sports Live, got an interview with Coach Case Rasmus and Kinley Rasmus, his niece, who is a fantastic player. That clip has just got so many views, thousands and thousands of views. I've had non-sports people come up to me and say they saw that interview. I've done broadcasting for 6 years now. That has never happened. So I'm truly blessed that I got the opportunity to go down to Warner Robins to cover Phenix City Little League, as they will be in Williamsport. They've been in Williamsport for a whole week. We had Coach Rasmus on the show earlier this morning on the Sports Visions morning show, And I know I slipped up and I said Georgia when I meant Alabama, but sometimes that happens. But they will be taking on Tacoma, Washington, 3 o'clock on ESPN. The lineup for the Little League World Series. We got Leon from Nicaragua taking on Santiago from the Dominican Republic. That's in the international bracket. We got Vancouver, Canada, taking on Seoul, South Korea at 5 o'clock in the international bracket. And then we got Bayonne, New Jersey, taking on Bridgewater, Massachusetts, 7 o'clock on Wednesday. In that side of the bracket, we've got Sydney, Australia, taking on Tijuana, Mexico. Noon in Williamsport on Thursday. Hamilton, Ohio, taking on Henderson, Nevada. And then we got Williamstead, Curacao, taking on Tokyo, Japan in the international bracket. Bonita, California. Shout out to my West brethren, because I played Little League in the West for Milpitas South. Shout out to them in California. 92, I did not make the All-Star team, but that would have been the year that I would have gone to Williamsport if I was good enough. 1992, taking on Davenport, Iowa, and then, of course, the double elimination round. I know that the winner of that game between Tacoma and Phenix City will be taking on a team from Texas who won the Southwest bracket. But Williamsport, always a fun time. In fact, they're having the Little League Classic. The Braves taking on the Brewers, 7 o'clock in the big stadium at Williamsport. I think that's a pretty good segue. Let's talk a little Major League Baseball, because the Atlanta Braves, they did what they had to do. They were able to get a win over the Diamondbacks, because right now the Braves are 7.5 ahead of the Philadelphia Phillies. I like where the Braves are. I do think that the pitching is coming around. And the Atlanta Braves actually will be traveling. They're doing quite a few travels, taking on the Minnesota Twins on the road. They actually will play today. In fact, that's going to be in a couple hours, taking on the Minnesota Twins. And then they got the Twins for a 3-game series. They play an afternoon game on Thursday against the Chicago White Sox. That was a makeup game. And then they will be traveling to Milwaukee to take on the Brewers for 2 games, and then taking on the Brewers for 1 game at Williamsport, Pennsylvania, before they head home to Truett's Park next Tuesday, taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers for a 3-game series, and then the Rockies, and then the Giants. And that is the month of August. I like where the Braves are. Right now, they would be the number 2 seed, but you got the Dodgers that is a half game behind the Braves that lost 2 straight to the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers, I mean, they're not just doing it with the Miz. Jacob Mizorowski could be a Cy Young candidate. They're doing it with their bats as well. I think Craig Counsell is going to be manager of the year in the National League. The Milwaukee Brewers have the best record in Major League Baseball. If you look over in the American League, the Tampa Bay Rays got the best record in the American League. And then you've got the White Sox, which would be the 2 seed. So you got the Rays would be the 1 seed. White Sox would be the 2 seed. Astros, 63-62, and they're on top of the AL West. That means they would make the playoffs. And Triple Crown watch, as we have got a fantastic showing for Yordan Alvarez, who is flirting with the Triple Crown. He's got .321 batting average, 36 home runs, and 88 runs batted in. The last time a player won the Triple Crown, Miguel Cabrera in 2012. Look, I'm a baseball nerd. I love baseball. I talked on my show on Friday about how disappointed I am with the San Francisco Giants. It's just not working out with Tony Vitello. It's just a bad experiment. He's a college baseball coach, and he is coaching in the majors. I mean, I don't see Andy Lopez coaching in the majors. You've got to put in the grind. You've got to go through the system, through the minor league, and then become like a third base coach, a hitting coach, and then become a major league manager. I just think that this was not a very good experiment, and it's just not working out. I would not be surprised if he pulled a Bobby Petrino and goes back to college. Not mid-season. Come on. Don't do that mid-season. All right, let's go from the Major League Baseball to the WNBA, because we had a Caitlin Clark Angel Reese sighting Sunday, State Farm Arena. My guy Mike Woods was there in attendance, and Michaela Timpson, who played at Early County. She actually was part of Girls Inc. I met her. We had a thing down at Girls Inc. Just a very humble kid who had a career high 20 points for the Indiana Fever as they were able to get the win in overtime, 95-91. And you talk about two teams that could end up facing each other in the playoffs. Caitlin Clark was fantastic, 26 points. Kelsey Mitchell, who really, Coach Stephanie White, she's been getting a lot of heat lately, but she knows who her clutch player is. It's Kelsey Mitchell. I know Caitlin Clark is box office, but she missed a wide open three. It was an air ball when the game on the line. But the Atlanta Dream, I love Alicia Gray. She's fantastic. You got Angel Reese, 15 points, 14 rebounds. Say what you want about Angel Reese, but she's still a great player. And she fits Atlanta. That's what I love about Angel Reese. I just love the fact you had 17,000 fans pack State Farm Arena on a Sunday afternoon for this game. And I wanted to bring this up because it's a big deal. I love the WNBA. I don't care of all those distractions that's going on in the WNBA with the issues that they are dealing with. And I'm just going to keep it simple to just issues because it's not fair to the girls that actually put their heart and soul in the game they love and put it out on the floor. I just don't think it's fair to them because this is a wonderful game. Right now, I think that we have got the 8 teams that are going to be in the playoffs. There's nobody that's clinched. Yeah, I know that Minnesota is clinched. Vegas and Golden State are close to clinching. Minnesota has clinched. But right now, the top 8 teams are Minnesota, Golden State, Vegas, Indiana, Atlanta, New York, Washington, and Dallas. And Portland would be the 9th team. They are about 5 games back from Dallas. So I think that these are going to be the top 8 teams that make it into the WNBA playoffs. And I'm rooting for this league. I really am. All right, let's take another break. When we come back, going to talk a little bit about high school football. This is my bread and butter. This is where I get fired up for this upcoming season, doing my homework. Going to talk about some of the matchups we are looking forward to in week 1. So stick around. You don't want to go anywhere. It's the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. And by the way, we're going to recap last week. So don't go anywhere. It's the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Back after this. And we are back here on the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Man, what a show. What a time. What a time to be a high school football fan. This is my favorite time of the year. We technically had week 0 as we were at Calvary Christian. I got to be sideline reporter for Georgia Alabama Sports Live. It was absolutely fantastic. We had over 2,000 fans there. That was the most crowded Calvary football game that I have ever witnessed. I've called several Calvary games over the years. They've done a fantastic job, including like adding more bleachers, adding more concessions. It was great. They were able to get the win over Bethlehem Christian. Braxton Wilkinson passed for 321 yards. He was fantastic. I was just blown away. That play that he had, the pass to Sawyer Talbot in the breadbasket, was absolutely incredible. I was there on the sideline for him to throw that. And shout out to my guy, Coach Emmanuel Brunson, who's always been a humble guy. He's one of those guys that just you want to play for because you know that the teams that he coaches, they're going to play hard for him. I do want to share the stats. He actually posted this, and I do want to share this. Braxton Wilkinson was 36 of 32 for 334 yards, a touchdown, 11 carries, and 49 yards. Dontarius Taylor had 70 all-purpose yards and a touchdown. Jordan McGee, 7 carries, 20 yards and a touchdown. Jakari Harris, he's had broke the school record for the most catches in a game. 10 catches for 113 yards. He did have a touchdown called back. Imagine how many more yards he would have had. Sawyer Talbot, 6 catches, 106 yards. We had Caden Bowie, 4 catches, 48 yards. How about Robert Bailey making his Calvary debut, the former Shaw Raider, 4 catches for 39 yards. And he was also on defense, had a pick 6 that was called back. And then Karan Thomas with 3 carries and 51 yards. Calvary Christian will be taking on Mount Zion in the GHSA next week on the road. We'll be back at it in 2 weeks for Flint River Academy. I'll be on the call on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I am so looking forward to being up there in the broadcast booth and calling Calvary Knights football. Meanwhile, Pacelli got the big win over First Presbyterian Day, 22-21. The roll of the dice by second-year coach Smitty Grider, giving it to Cam Carino, and then able to get an interception by Gabe Galarza to seal the victory, to get a big win over FPD on the road. Pacelli will be taking on Stratford Academy this Friday at Diamond Field for the home opener. Brookstone, the valiant effort. They almost came back on Westfield School. They were down 33-14. Brookstone ended up getting a touchdown by Dylan Terry, got an onside kick, and they got another touchdown. And then they got a defensive stop, and they got the ball back. But Westfield's defense was able to hold on. Brookstone will be taking on Spencer this Friday. And remember, Friday's show, it's an audio-only show. It's a high school football scoreboard show. I break down all the games in Georgia and all the games in Alabama, or as many as I can for the Columbus, Montgomery, Macon, Albany area. Those are the 4 cities that I'm focused on in that surrounding area. So bear with me. That's what I'm wanting to try to do. That's why I've had Aaron Mukes on my show. I've been trying to get Davis Barker on my show. I'm getting Sammy Costas on the show next week. Going to talk high school football in that area. That's why I appreciate just those people networking with me and helping out Middle Georgia Sports Live, tapping into the Montgomery market. I got my reasons, but I just want to be all things to all people in this area, especially when our teams are playing their teams, and we could just talk high school football and have a fantastic time. All right, so we only had 3 teams that were in action. I mean, the GIAA was in action. Congratulations, Terrence Mathis, getting his first win as coach of Athens Christian. They beat Augusta Prep. Now, Flint River ended up beating Robert Toombs. Great win by the Flint River Academy Wildcats. But let's talk week 1 because, we have a couple of Thursday night games. We've got Randolph Clay at Otis Spencer Stadium taking on the Hardaway Hawks. We'll have it for you on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And then we have the rematch of the semifinal in the 7A state playoffs in Alabama. We got Central and Thompson. I cannot wait for that game. And I know it's Alabama. I know this segment is Georgia. On Wednesday, I'll talk Alabama. Don't worry. This is just Georgia. Let's talk about some of the matchups in Georgia. The oldest rivalry in Columbus, week 1, Memorial Stadium. We got Columbus and Jordan. Kendrick is hosting Miller County at Otis Spencer Stadium. No games at Kinnett Stadium this week. They're getting that stadium ready for the opener, which is going to be on September the 27th. We got Carver going up to take on Frederick Douglass at Lakewood Stadium. That's going to be a big game. Troup County on the road taking on Hampton. We've got Shaw taking on Booker T. Washington on the road. We've got Manchester hosting Harris County. LaGrange is taking on Noonan. That's going to be on the road. Border Wars, North Side, taking on Smith Station. In Smith Station, we've got Marion County hosting Hawkinsville. Central Talbotton hosting Cross Keys. Terrell County is on the road against Chaco. And I am pleased to announce that Georgia Alabama Sports Live will be streaming Chattahoochee County at home for the first time in school history. I will be on the call for that. I am excited to make my way down to Casita, Georgia, and call the first ever Chaco football game on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. It's definitely going to be exciting. I cannot wait for that. And then we got another game I do want to talk about. Pike County is taking on Taylor County. And I promise you, on Friday's show, I'm going to break down everything. I want to put more interest in the Pike counties of the world, the Taylor counties, Macon County, Crawford County, that area. A lot of these teams, Upson Lee, they just don't get covered as much because they're kind of in no man's land between Georgia Alabama Sports Live and Middle Georgia Sports Live. And I just want to give them love because they deserve it. They've got some talented teams in that area between Georgia Alabama Sports Live and Middle Georgia Sports Live. Wow, what a great show. I actually went a little bit over the 45 minutes I normally go for this show. Don't forget Gabe Reynolds. He's coming on the show on Wednesday. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget, you can follow us on socials. I'm on Instagram and TikTok, and you can download the podcast and listen to us commercial-free on Apple and Spotify. Well, not commercial-free. I'll put commercials in there because we got to pay the bills. But thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. We will see you next time. See you Wednesday for Wednesday's show. Gabe Reynolds, you're on deck. I'll see you, man. We're going to see you on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your night, everybody.
Thank you for watching the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. You can catch new episodes on Facebook and YouTube every Monday and Wednesday night at 5 p.m. The Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge is a local podcast that covers sports in Columbus, Georgia.